Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Mimi Graney. I'm the Economic Vitality Manager for the Town of Concord. And we are here tonight to hear from our three artists who are the finalists for our project called Making It Public. So I've got a brief slide presentation to kind of introduce the whole program, and then each one of them is going to tell you a little bit about their individual proposals. And at the end, if you haven't already, we've got comment cards over there, and we'll be inviting you to share whatever notes that you have that we can, the selection committee will then review. So let me. So as I mentioned, Making It Public is a program by the New England Foundation for the Arts. And the idea is to really build up the muscles of local municipalities to better commission works of public art. And the idea is they have a parallel track. There's one for municipalities, the other one is for artists. And the idea is to create more diverse, inclusive, and equitable art making. So they've worked specifically with artists that otherwise hadn't been applying for commissions to be able to respond to different commissions. So Concord is one of a number of communities around the state taking part in this. So foremost, it was really training for municipal staff, and Beth Williams, who's the tourism manager and runs the visitor center, and Donna McIntosh, who is the town communications manager. The three of us took part in the training and developed this scope of art, call for art, with a steering committee, an advisory committee, and these are all of the folks that took part in it, a number of people who are here. So if you were on the steering committee, if you wouldn't mind just raising your hand so other folks can appreciate your work and input into this project. Thank you. So to tell you a little bit about the site, we're meeting tonight at the Townhouse. This is the lawn immediately across Monument Square. It previously had the Middlesex Hotel and it had a courthouse. It's now known as the place where Thoreau had spent his night in jail and was inspired to write the essay Civil Disobedience. It is also the site that the 250th Memorial Committee is looking for a permanent memorial as part of the recognizing the anniversary of the Revolutionary War. And here's another site. A sign of the site. And for this call for art, we were asking the artists to take inspiration from 3 times that Concord was called for the fight for freedom. One was 250 years ago during the American War for Independence. Then in the mid-1800s, when Henry David Thoreau and Allen Garrison were both fighting for abolition and expanding civil rights. And then we asked the artists to also think about, like, how is that fight for freedom relevant for today? How are Concordians called to take part for what's relevant for this generation? And this is part of why we're resonant of those particular themes. And we're recognizing that the whole idea about thinking about memorials and markers is a really hot topic in Concord, but it's also something that's happening nationally, especially in the renewed awareness of really thinking about how the impact of our narratives play into how we actually live our lives and how we express equity in our communities. So the criteria that we're looking at, and we're hoping that you'll have in mind as you're thinking about these works of art, is the artistic merit of the particular design. Is it responsive to this particular time, this particular location, this particular community? And with this modest budget of $20,000, that will go pretty quickly for construction and the artist's time developing it. So we want to make sure that it's actually feasible. We don't want something so fanciful that there's no way of executing it in the budget or in our 3D world. So this process has actually been going on for a while. Donna and Beth and I started our training. I actually started even before I started here in Concord. I was doing it on behalf of another community. So our training ended up in about May or so. We developed the call for art over the ensuing months. It was actually issued last October. The artists submitted their concepts back in January. The committee selected a set of semifinalists. So these are our semifinalists that they've came forward and were chosen from a larger pool. And then tonight is our community forum. And based on the feedback from tonight, and then we'll also be getting other input, we will select a finalist that will then be vetted through the processes to be reviewed by the Historic Districts Commission. They'll connect with the Public Works to make sure it's actually possible on the site, and they'll be contracted to execute the work. And the intention is for this to be installed for September, October, and November of this year. So just so you know what's going to happen, each of the artists are allowed 10 slides each in about 10 minutes. And I will be the little timekeeper. And then I encourage all of you to stay around, and you can see the artists have got some display boards around the table, so you can actually meet with them one-on-one. We'll take it right after the formal presentations. We'll have a question and answer, but then we'll have our reception and enjoy some refreshments too. And it's sort of the idea is to a little bit be like a science fair, and you can get to know them a little more personally. So the three artists, just to give you a quick little preview, is Crystal Brown, and she's titled her interpretation Civil Redemption. Liz Helfer with Freedom Silhouette, and then Sylvina Mizrahi with Echoes of Freedom, a dialogue between past and present. So I'm going to transition so that Crystal will get to have her program come up next. And while we're transitioning, hopefully I can do this without a lot of fanfare, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Crystal. So Crystal lives in Salem, and she's a multimedia artist who explores connections between family history, placemaking, class, and power structures. And her recent artwork includes a solo exhibition at Boston's Kingston Gallery and a temporary installation in Dorchester with the public art organization known as Now and There.
How do I get it so I can do presentation?
Do you have it in share mode?
No, it's okay. I've just never done this before.
There are too many windows open here, excuse me.
The little icon, I think, to make it bigger, because I think you should. Here we go. Yeah, there you go.
How many artists does it take to do a presentation?
Oh, you want to select that?
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, and then,
Then we have to do presentation mode.
and it'll still have notes up, right? Like where I can see it?
Hold on. This is requiring a level of, do you have the have higher expertise?
I can't see it because of this. Hold on. How do I get it? Slideshow? I'm waiting. Yes?
Yeah, but
that
where's the notes?
Where are your notes? Hold on. I don't know how to do it with notes. I'm
Is
sorry.
that the one to put in the big screen? I think it's the one. Sorry. I think
Thanks
it's-
for your
It's the one
patience.
down there. The on the bottom, the one,
I
the
know,
first one on the bottom.
I don't know where, I don't
Done.
know where my mouse
Oh, here.
I think that's the one on the bottom.
Where's the mouse? Oh, wait, it's over here, okay.
There you go. This,
Is it
this one. I think it's this one.
Reading review.
Slideshow. I think it's slideshow. There you
It's
go.
not
And then
showing your
you
notes.
do the S with the arrow, and you can keep moving it with this. one.
Yeah, that, I need the notes.
Ah, the notes. Okay.
Let's go. Yeah, bring it up on a. Let me see.
I may have to do this.
We'll make it work.
What I might do is I think we're going to go to the next
Yeah,
person and
let's
then
do
give you
that.
some time to
Yeah.
do that.
That's okay. I might just have to show it with the notes on the view. On
That might
view.
be all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, what's it mean?
So I'm going to pass it over to Liz.
Here we go. I'm taking out the note card. Just save it. Okay. So let me.
So Liz Helfer's studio is in Waltham, where she creates metals and mixed media sculpture. Her recent work includes a temporary outdoor sculpture in Chestnut Hill Square in Newton, and a permanent sculpture on the ground of the Great North Woods Center for the Arts. Concordians might recognize her name and work from last summer's Art Ramble installation at the Hapwood Wright Town Forest, organized by the Umbrella Arts Center and Concord's Division of Natural Resources.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm Liz Helfer, and I'm excited to share my sculpture proposal with you titled Freedom's Silhouette. Please forgive me for reading from my notes. I just want to make sure I don't leave anything out. I've been creating large outdoor sculpture since 2010 through my practice called Liz Helfer Studios. My training is in metalwork, particularly metal casting, but I have a passion for woodworking and recycled and upcycled mixed media projects that highlight our environmental vulnerability. In addition to the sculptural work I create for the public realm and for commission, I also often sit on the other side of calls for art as a public arts planner in a nearby municipality. In recent years, it has been amazing to see the proliferation of work in the arts and culture sector, particularly around untold stories and underrepresented figures in our collective history. My design features two figures facing each other on separate benches. The benches are oak with cast iron ends, and the figures are cut from translucent mirrored acrylic. I brought some examples. We can talk about it later. The figures are Ellen Garrison and Henry David Thoreau, seated across from each other as though in conversation. Thoreau is a known luminary of the Transcendentalist movement and proponent of the abolitionist cause, and Ellen Garrison is a lesser-known figure, but one whose impact as a Black woman furthering civil rights in the 19th century, cannot be overstated. It was important to me in the installation that they were of equal stature, seated in direct conversation in a way that was not likely during their lifetimes. Garrison and Thoreau in translucent silhouette act as a literal lens through which visitors can view the world. Simultaneously, they are mirrors in which visitors can see themselves and their actions reflected. The cast iron bench ends name Garrison and Thoreau in the place of a traditional maker's mark to clue in visitors to their prominence. Also in cast iron relief on the bench ends are symbolic representations of revolutionary soldiers, a nod to their forebears who served. Okay. The installation emphasizes reflection through the seated pose. The pose is intentional. There is freedom in simply being allowed to sit and be in a space, in particular to sit and be safe. This excerpted quote, that it was unsafe to go out, from Ellen Garrison, describes her experience in being forcibly removed from a train waiting area. She was not allowed to sit and did not feel safe existing in that space. Some of the most iconic moments of the civil rights movement, predicated by the abolitionist movement, came in the form of seated poses: Rosa Parks on the bus, numerous sit-ins, and Ruby Bridges in the classroom. As visitors sit on the benches next to Garrison or Thoreau, they may feel they are in conversation with these individuals and part of a long and impactful legacy. Okay. In this sculpture, Garrison and Thoreau are literal lenses to the past and reflections of the future. From the Revolution, we can see images represented in the symbolic cast iron ends of both of their grandfathers who served in the American Revolution in different ways. Cesar Robbins as a revolutionary soldier, and Jean Thoreau as a revolutionary privateer. During the abolitionist era, a nod to the 19th century is through the bench design itself. Thoreau and Garrison are shown in profile in the fashions of their time. And today, the use of contemporary material like acrylic is a contemporary spin on figurative memorialization. When we think about freedom today, we can often think about education providing resources to people who need them. And here's things I really like about materials. The benches are made of historically accurate materials for the mid to late 19th century with oak and cast iron. Cast iron is a medium I'm particularly passionate about. one of few metals that can be cast fully recycled, and often more accessible than other high-temperature casting metals. I will sculpt the patterns in my studio and cast them at a New England foundry, with many of whom I have a strong relationship with. The cast iron will be coated with an oil-based sealant or powder-coated to achieve the traditional black finish we all know. As this installation emphasizes reflection, both literal and metaphorical, Thoreau's work is about reflection, his own, and in the decades since his writing, the myriad of reflections others have created in reaction to his work. It also emphasizes reflection of action. Visitors may think through how their actions align with the work of these abolitionists, how they were able to simply exist here and now due to the actions of their forebears. Two-way mirrored acrylic is a unique material that brings this installation into the contemporary art realm. You'll recognize this material from crime dramas, the interrogation room, in which the folks outside the room can see in, and the people inside the room only see a mirror. This only works when the lighting is different on each side of the glass. When the lighting is equal on both sides, as it would be most times during this installation, the acrylic is both a mirror and see-through. The acrylic will be attached to the bench using cast iron brackets, like you see pictured here, that are in keeping with the style of the cast iron bench ends. I've been experimenting with all of these materials for several years, and I'm excited to bring them together in this proposal. Oak is a traditional New England hardwood that can be sourced locally. The wood would be finished with a UV-resistant polyurethane that can withstand outdoor elements and prevent discoloration. Skipping a page. The installation of this piece is straightforward and appropriate for a 3-month period. Preformed concrete footings can be embedded beneath each bench foot, and the benches will be designed to bolt into those footings. When the sculpture is removed, the blocks can be reused and the holes can easily be refilled and reseated. Okay. A key component of the installation is educational programming. An accompanying sign that provides context and QR code links to additional resources, as well as stakeholder information, will be invaluable here. The sign should make it clear for any uncertain visitors that they are welcome to sit and interact with the work. And working with project stakeholders like the Robbins House and others, I anticipate developing leading questions for tours of historic Concord, in addition to a possible close-looking exercise led by the artist. That's me. I am honored to be a finalist for the Fight for Freedom, and I look forward to your questions. Here you see a digital rendering of a Revolutionary soldier in cast iron relief as an example. You could find past examples of my other artwork on my website, which is linked here. I'm thrilled to see this call for art from Concord, working towards a narrative of unerasure that many places are grappling with today. It is work that I am passionate about and get to collaborate on every day and hope to do here. As Concord continues the fight for freedom, I invite you to join me to sit and reflect. Thank you.
We did? Thank you, Liz. I think we're going to come back to Crystal, if she's ready. Okay.
Yeah, you want it on the other side?
Oh, this is fine. Okay, yeah. So, thank God for technology, but also curse technology. All right.
Escape from our screen share and then move it
Oh,
over.
right. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So my name is Crystal Brown, and my project is called Civil Redemption, which evokes the work of Ellen Garrison and Henry David Thoreau through a critical look at incarceration in Massachusetts. This interactive installation unites the histories of incarceration in Concord by pulling parts of Thoreau's civil disobedience and the lived experience of formerly incarcerated men from the soon-to-be defunct MCI Concord at the very site where Thoreau spent one night in jail in 1846. Spurred by Ellen Garrison's work to educate formerly enslaved people how to read and write, this installation invites members of the public to become active citizens and write to state politicians to end solitary confinement in Massachusetts. I will get to the next slide. Oh, there we go. There are three components that come together to make up civil redemption, and each one I'll explain in further slides. There is an 8 foot by 10 foot floor plan laid with gravel that visitors will enter. This is the average size of a Massachusetts state prison cell. The second component along the sides of the gravel will be a 10-foot wall and an 8-foot wall with interactive windows that flip to have quotes of by Thoreau's Civil Disobedience on one side and photographs that I take while working with formerly incarcerated men from MCI Concord. And then the third component will be a repurposed student's desk with accessibility enhancements to create a community-engaged written prompt that seeks to end solitary confinement in Massachusetts. How did I get that to go? Sorry, my phone is... Oh, yes, I will remember that. Thank you. Liz is amazing. The first component is the floor plan of a prison cell, which is roughly the average size of a single-person cell in Massachusetts. This is the amount of space where incarcerated people will spend up to 21.5 hours a day while in solitary confinement, which is called restrictive housing in Massachusetts. The floor plan / platform evokes the history of the site being the former Concord jail in which Thoreau spent one night due to not paying his poll tax on part of his abolitionist beliefs. To demarcate the space, pea gravel will be framed by wood to ensure neatness of the site. They'll also, not shown in this sketch, will have a part that's not framed just so people can enter it. Gravel has been suggested as a material that will not disturb the soil or the site in general. The wood frame will also serve as another structural element for the walls, which will be shown in future slides. In the center of the floor plan will be a wood plaque that will give important context for this project in the site. In the center of the gravel platform, a PVC sign mounted on a wood wedge will give more context to the wood. And there's also I'll show it in my poster board, what the words will have on that sign. At each cardinal direction will be the corresponding location and mileage from the Monument Square of Concord to the 12 Massachusetts state correctional institutions. These include hospitals, pre-release, minimum, moderate, and maximum security facilities. And yeah, on my presentation board, you can see that a little bit more up close. The sizing of this plaque will be made according to the legibility of the text, but also to ensure accessibility of the floor plan concerning mobility devices. Along one 10-foot slide and one 8-foot slide will be two wall structures. These wall structures, literally and figuratively, evoke the memory of the former jail site and the contrast of freedom and imprisonment. The windows are interactive. They'll be constructed of weatherproof Dibond, which is a lightweight recycled aluminum, and will flip between a quote from Civil Disobedience and a photograph from a project with formerly incarcerated men from MCI Concord. I would work with Massachusetts Against Solitary Confinement, MASC, and incarcerated centered organizations to interview interested people who were once at MCI Concord to share their story of life after prison and what their view of freedom is now that they're out. I will then photograph images that correspond to what they describe, and the images would then be approved by these men to tell their stories. The images in this slide are from my past project, talking to Dorchester residents about their experiences with the housing crisis in Boston. The windows will be all 2 feet in length. They'll be at various heights along the wall, varying between 3.5 and 3.25 feet up, and it will be various widths, just so different people can interact with it. I was thinking of children and people of different heights. The viewer will be able to flip these windows to reveal either a photo or a quote by civil disobedience on either side. A center axial mechanism will allow the Dibond prints to flip. The corners will be slightly rounded so the metal doesn't cause injury. The desk is inspired by Ellen Garrison's work to teach formerly enslaved people across the United States, risking her own freedom and life. The individual or the viewer is invited to use the act of writing to spark collective action to end solitary confinement in the state of Massachusetts through postcards sent to state legislators that will be supplied at this desk. Desks, like I have in the image here, found in schools where Ellen Garrison taught, where Henry David Thoreau worked on while he was working on civil disobedience, and where incarcerated people may spend their time in prison cells, call the many layers of what a fight for freedom has been born from, through the convictions of someone's story and words. The desk also ties together 2 disparate themes to express that those of us on the outside of prison are both students and activists. What can we learn from the lives of both of these figures in history, and also of the people in our communities whose stories are not told? So the desk will be weatherproofed, polyurethane to endure rain and wind, made to be accessible for people who use mobility aids. Have a fold-out chair, like in the past slide, there was an option for a fold-out stool for those who wish to sit. Have a compartment inside for the postcards and writing utensils. And then Ellen Garrison's letters on top of the desk. It would be secured and weatherproofed, and then with an access with a QR code for typed versions for accessibility, because I know 19th century handwriting can be a little tricky. The writing prompt will be included on the desk with a specific bill for visitors to read through a QR code, and a printout inside the desk that visitors can take with them. The specific bill is forthcoming, and I'll be working with Mass to learn more about which bill is best suited for this project, because the legislation is updated every month. So I want to make sure that I get the specific bill correct for this. On each postcard, it'll be addressed to Concord-affiliated state legislators, and it'll be pre-stamped with a box on the outside of the desk for completed postcards. Postcards will be picked up weekly to be delivered by mail. The desk will be able to accommodate 1 adult at a time, or 1 child at a time. 1 person, we can say. Writing prompts with writing materials will be stored safely in the desk and refilled weekly. Installation will be done by BRM Project Management, who I've used in the past for my project in Dorchester. And they will be installing the walls and the gravel component with the desk. So this is a view with the Catholic Parish Center and the 8-foot wall with the Henry David Thoreau plaque in the far back that you can't see. Oops, sorry. No. And then briefly, this is my budget plan, which will include fabrication of the desk and die-bond panels, as well as the walls as needed. I'll be using, again, BRM project management, and I will be also using an engineering firm to ensure structural and safety compliance for the duration of this project's installation. But other than that, I want to thank you all for your patience as I dealt with some technical issues. But there's also some more images and site views of my project on my board. And I welcome any questions at the end. Thank you.
We're now going to transition to our last artist, who is Silvina Mizrahi. Silvina is originally from Argentina and has been living in Boston since 2001. Her artistic background includes dance, painting, and multimedia sculpture, with an artistic approach that's centered on historical narratives. Her recent work includes participation in A Sense of Place, which was a temporary art installation along the Minuteman Bikeway in Lexington, and Studios Without Walls on the rail trail in Natick.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Art Committee, for having selected me for this proposal. It's a really honor for me to share now my idea with all of you. So, Echoes of Freedom, a dialogue between the past and present. And I will gonna start describing my proposal. So first, just a little bit about me. I am an Argentinian-American interdisciplinary artist and art educator. I got my degree as a licentiate of fine art by the University of Argentina. And I really work, my work is really by my belief that art as a tool that helps us to connect, to heal, and to embrace our differences. I like really to work with different materials and techniques that they can really get the sense of the project that I want to do. And my work includes bronze sculptures, mixed media paintings, sculptures with recycled materials, public projects, and community art. In these slides, you can see some examples of my work. So the first is a commission by the Museum of Fine Art for the Hanukkah celebration. The second one is the final proposal, the final project that I did with the Boston Public School at Fenway Park, exhibitions outside the site of Jerusalem. The one with the heart is a proposal from Framingham that was many communities, many hearts, one community. The final project from my students at the MFA, and most recently a mural that I paint at the Roxbury Community College with among other artists that is called Ode from Africa to America. So the goal of these projects is to spark new conversations with the residents and visitors to the town about what freedoms and independence means that now we are heading to the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. Echoes of Freedom, a dialogue between past and present, is a proposal that wants to bring together all the rich tapestry of Concord history, highlighting the stories of the Black residents, abolitionists, and in broader theme, freedom and justice. This proposal was really drawn the inspiration by the profound philosophies of Henry David Thoreau and Ellen Garrison. Here you can see the aerial view of the site, a map and a photograph on the left. And where you see the blue star is where I propose to have the installation. And in the photograph next to this one, you can see the scale of the installation on the site. So it's 18 feet length, but 5 feet wide and 10 feet high. Now I will describe the components of the design. So the design is basically, they have two main components, and I will gonna start describing the first one. As a symbol of social injustice is the crafted wooden structure that is a reminiscence of a slave ship and a cabin. The material is wood, and the figures are cut out in metal. And the idea is to have solar lights that they were going to be around the whole installation, and also inside the structure, so at night it will going to be also illuminated. Also, inspirational quotes from Henry David Thoreau, Ellen Garrison, and I also wanted to add one essential from Ralph Waldo Emerson into this proposal. In these slides, you can see how the quotes from Ellen Garrison will going to be on one side, David Thoreau in the other side, and the Hymn of Concord, it's going to be painted inside the structure. The other component of the installation will going to be two live silhouettes of Henry David Thoreau and Ellen Garrison, that they are positioned in a way that they are struggling really to move forward. And the dynamic presence symbolizes the fight for freedom and justice that they really started, and this remain until this day. Why the figures will going to be painted in blue? So blue is the color of freedom. This is why I decided that the figures will going to be painted in blue. In terms of public engagement, I anticipate that the visitors are going to have an interaction from a closer view and from a far view. From any part of the Monument Square, you are going to be able to see the structure. Actually, the installation invites you to go around, and also to have a close view, because you're going to have the details of the figures and the quotes that they were going to be painted. So definitely, also we're going to have the visitors will going to have interest in get it from closer. Even though the structure the kids will not going to be able to climb it because they were going to be completely covered with wood. So probably a sign of no climbing that I know it's tempting, will be placed on the side of the structure. In terms of a program companion, I would love to lead tours that they not only be tours about the historical moment and the installations, but tours that they include visual thinking strategies that basically by asking the questions to the visitors, what do you see and what you make say that? This invite the viewers to have a better connection with the objects that they are looking at. And the other benefit of this method is that if you have many people in the tour and everybody has a different opinion about what the installation means, so your experience is richer. So this is why I really would love to include that on the tours. Also family tours where all the families can bring together and have an art making activity to involve the kids on the project. And the art making activity that I thought that it's going to be fun, that I have been making it in many projects, is the wire figure sculptures, that in one hand they can teach the kids in different ages how to make a sculpture. And in the other hand, as a way that you can dress the sculptures on the period that in the 1900s, that was the period that this installation is intended to be also, it's another way to learn. And as the last part of the public engagement, I would love also to go to see if the possibility to go to the Concord Public Schools and invite the classes with the students with special needs to also be part, where I can do the art making activity and show slides, or invited to the place so they can be included in as visitors too. And well, last but not least, I want to thank to all, all this group of people that they were helping me with a photograph, with knowledge to make possible this proposal. So Concord Advisor Committee, Mimi Graney, Rebecca McDowell, Richard Smith, Rachel Green, and Jen Turner. So thank you very much, and yeah, I'm ready for the questions.
Thank you all very much. If you could pass this back so I can do the Zoom. So we're now going to open it up for questions. So if folks want to ask a question, if you wouldn't mind going to the mic, and then we'll take some questions from Zoom if there's anybody on with that.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Can you make sure the mic is turned on? It might not be.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Anyway, that was super exciting, wonderful ideas. I really appreciate it.
Here we go.
There we go.
I really appreciated how interactive, you really thought about the interactive elements of each of the pieces. I thought that was probably the most exciting part. And the forms, of course. But okay, so specific questions. For Crystal, I was just curious about that accessibility component. You picture a wheelchair at the desk, and you said that it would be accessible, so I'm assuming that there's a way it can go over the gravel or it's flattened in that spot. Also wondered how people using wheelchairs would be able to access the rest of the piece. Would it be only from the outside and use the windows, being able to flip the windows allows them to see for both, but what is the significance of sort of being on the outside of the piece for that?
Yeah, I think like if you weren't on the gravel portion, you could still flip the windows because they flip either way.
Right.
So I've been talking with Bianca at BRM Project Management. We would have to create some kind of system so it's not flipping in the wind. So that is something that we have to consider, perhaps only making it, it might have like some kind of lever. So I haven't really thought through about if it's only, it might have like a lever in the front because we don't want it like spinning. Right. So that little nitty gritty part is something that I still need to figure out. But at least with the gravel, we think that it's still, if people are in, say a wheelchair, they'll still be able to enter into the space. And like I said, that wood frame is not going to go all the way around it. It'll have the, the ADA, I think it's like 36 inches wide, and wider if it needs to be. The wood frame is also to contain the gravel, so it's not leaking out everywhere. And then at the various heights of the photos with the quotes on the other side, I was thinking of, just so everyone would have a moment to interact with it. So children, but also people in a seated position if they're in a wheelchair or something along those lines.
Great. That was my question, is that the heights will not exceed what could be reachable from
Yeah, and I don't want them I was thinking eye level, but what does eye level mean? Because when I think of eye level, I'm 5'5", but really not that much higher. But also not too low, so people aren't completely stooping down. But you do want people who are shorter, which is typically children, to be able to interact with it as well. So try to get a little bit of everyone in there.
If I could just go on, I have a question for Liz about your signage. You gave all this information about your piece, which obviously can't fit on a sign, and some of it you obviously want the audience, the viewers, to just experience on their own and kind of figure out all the resonances. But there did seem to be a lot of useful kind of historical references and information that would be good on a sign. You had a lot of logos on that sign. I don't know if that's really going to happen. And
As
what,
an example.
Right. So, I mean, hopefully there's room for more text and logos, but I just wondered the balance of, what you are planning to say, a little bit more about what you're planning to say in signage versus, what you want to leave to the experience part. And also, I mean, the materials, all that was really interesting. And then I also wanted to ask you about, no, now I forgot. It had something to do with community engagement. I think it was are you planning to do, would you plan to do an artist talk?
Yeah.
Yes, and also, finally, about the budget.
Yeah, great. Sign first. Okay. So I envision, and actually, in my day job, I end up printing a lot of signs, and I would envision there being a landing page that QR code could link to, or that there would be a URL that would link to all the background information about this, so that people could go for more resources. I think that's a fair assumption that some people want the surface level, and some people are going to want to really dig into it. I think the goal is to try and encourage people to dig into it. On the actual sign, in terms of verbiage that's not a link to somewhere else and not a logo, because I just put all the stakeholders on there so they wouldn't feel left out. And I would envision a blurb about Ellen Garrison, who she was when she lived. Same thing, Henry David Thoreau, who we're all very familiar with. And then I would envision probably 3 questions, one that addresses looking back, one that addresses the time of the abolition, well, that's also looking back all the way to the revolution, one looking back to the abolitionist movement, and one looking forward, or now and forward, I would say, and developing those questions with folks at the Robbins House, probably in particular, because of their deeper knowledge of Ellen Garrison. Second question was?
Whether you would give an artist talk. I mean, I
Oh,
guess
yeah.
that's kind of up to the
Absolutely.
Up to the town to.
What I envisioned was, and I didn't know who the groups would be that would be interested. It might just be an open sort of, here's an event that we're doing, come and meet the artist. I'd like to lead a close looking exercise, which if you're
Oh yeah, I wanted to hear more about that.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with close looking,
Yeah.
close looking. So this is a technique that happens in museums a lot. I know you work in a museum. And it's an effort to say, stop and look, because most people don't spend more than 30 seconds in front of an art piece. Hopefully they'll sit at this one, right? Hang out for an hour or two, maybe 20 minutes. But it's to say, look at each side of it, look at it and see, does it tell you a story? There's a lot of different prompts you can use in close-looking exercises. One of them is to say, when you look at it, what story does it tell you? Where does the story end? Where does the story start? Give it the beginning, middle, and end. What parts do you need to fill in? And I think doing something that's guided in that way would be a really fun exercise for visitors.
Great. And the last thing was about the budget.
Yes. I didn't include a budget slide. I felt sort of...
Did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't, and I wish I did.
Right, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, so in the breakdown, it was a total of $20,000, but usually do a 25% to artist fee, and then there's the insurance costs that come with having general liability insurance for the creation and installation of this work, and also the duration of its existence in the world. I don't know, are they being insured by the city while they're there?
We'll be working that out.
Okay, cool. So insurance for many reasons. And then in addition to that, the material costs. So the actual casting probably costs about $6,000. The wood sourcing, I do source my wood locally from folks who cut their trees around here. I love that. Makes it a little more pricey. I also want to use a nice thick wood, so it's got some meat to it. I just love materials. So that's going to be a few thousand. And then the finishing with if I do go powder coating, it'll be another $1,000 or $2,000. It adds up the materials. Yeah, and then the installation costs.
I'm sure it does. I just wanted to make sure it was within the budget.
It's definitely within the budget.
And
And I anticipate having a couple of assistants come and help me for installation, and also the transportation costs, rent a truck.
Right.
Yep.
Silvina, I didn't really have questions for you. I think it would be more about the timeline of the construction for you, and sort of, I can't sort of imagine, what kind of time it takes you to create and carve each element and assemble?
So I must to say that part of the structure I have it with me. So it's the wooden structures, I already have it. So so this part is probably it's done, and the rest of the part is it's really like I think laser cut, and I needed to just I will kind of love to have someone dress it as Elaine Garrison or Henry David Thoreau also, and I have been in touch with the artist who did the reenactor of Henry David Thoreau, so probably just to have the real figure of them, and but yeah, basically I need to work more on the figures than on the wooden structure.
And did you demonstrate for us how they were going to be bolted into the ground?
Well, the things are going to be so basically it's the same that when you have the tree house on the thing. So basically they are a wide structure that they will going to be stable, but also they will going to be like ramps that they will going to be passing from one side to the other to go deep on the ground. Yeah, and the figures they have a base. You can see on the model, they will gonna have a metal base that also they will gonna have in each side, like a, I don't know how you say in English. It's like a stick that go inside. But if I needed more, also I can do like a cement, like a concrete base where the metal base can be applied and this on the top. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, a final question, I swear, just a little thing. Those dolls that you were going to have the children make?
I can show you one. Well, I have one made out of wire there that is not the one, it's not from the period, but this is from another activity that I did. So basically, how they started is they really learned how to make the structure of a figure in wire, and this is, and always we talk about that. This is how the bones are, and then you go to the muscles, and then you go to the period of the figure. So basically, it's like working with the wire first. Then you can use pipe cleaners as a way to dress the sculpture to do the muscles, or you can do aluminum foil. But this is from another activity, from another period, but definitely I can have pieces of fabric and think that they are reminds the 1900s, and they can be the figures dressed as the figures that they were in the 1900s, and let the kids do a kind of research of how they were dressing and having photographs where they can see them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you all so much. This is really exciting. Exciting for Concord, especially in the fall. That's pretty soon. Yeah. So I have a question for Liz.
Okay.
The figures
Yes.
are made of a material that won't break.
Yeah. So it's a cast acrylic. It's a pretty durable material, like you think plexiglass style, and it'll be a quarter inch or thicker. I'd like to get thicker. It jumps in price.
I'm
so.
sorry, I didn't hear how thick.
Okay, sorry. It'll be a quarter inch or thicker.
A quarter inch.
Or thick. I brought some tactile things.
So
you can
my
see
only
them.
question about that is the sharpness of it.
Yeah, and so it won't be.
It's like it looks like if you fell on it, it would hurt.
Yeah, so you can round the edges so that it's not sharp. It won't skin you or anything
Okay.
like that. The pieces I did bring are pretty sharp, but you can totally check it out. This is a different piece, different color. Not what I would use. Really fun color though. But it's incredibly durable. I've used it in many long-term outdoor installations, including permanent ones.
The conceptual part of being able to see through, or all of that is interesting. I just was worried that it might hurt people. Okay.
Great.
I don't have any other questions. You guys were super thorough. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, any last questions before we close? All right, well, I invite folks to continue on and meet the artists and check out their samples and materials and their displays. For folks that are at home, if you have comments that you want to share and get passed on to the review committee, I'm with the Town of Concord, Mimi Graney, and you can just email me at mgraney@concordma.gov, and I will pass those comments on. And you can just find me on the town's website too. So thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you.